And once again, a very warm welcome to all of our attendees this morning. Again, we just want to say for 2022, welcome to these Toolbox Talks, and we would love to hear from you. Now, we have heard from some of you from last week. Some have only started this week, but we just want to encourage you to please reach out to us. We want to know what you would like to see this year for Toolbox Talks, as well as what IOPSA can do for you as a member. Now, we are looking at health, safety, and training. We have started with the implementation of the risk management system for healthy living, particularly looking at pregnancy in the workplace. What can we do to assist you as someone who is pregnant, looking to get pregnant, a little bit of training on pregnancy, as well as helping you to develop a policy for pregnancy in your company. This will then also work hand in hand with your risk management system in keeping those expecting moms safe, as well as protecting your baby during that pregnancy period. So if you'd like some more information on that, please reach out to us. Again, that contact information, safety@iopsa.org, or send us a WhatsApp, 071-875-2070. When it came to the safety and training, many were asking about mentoring programs. How can you mentor someone in your company in order to run safety yourself? Now, we have had these Toolbox Talks. Can we do our own safety? And that is 100% yes, you are able to do your own safety. There is some training, however, that may be needed in order for you to kickstart your own safety training. Perhaps you need to buy a management system that is already outlined for minimum requirements in terms of the OHS Act for you. Well, we are designing that, and we want to give it to you as members of IOPSA. So please look forward to that, as well as the training. We are going to be releasing at least 5 courses over the 2022 year for you as members of IOPSA. So if you'd like to get in touch with us for that training and you want to be the first names on the list, again, just send us an email, send us a WhatsApp, tell us what you're looking forward to. We're going to be looking at risk management. We're going to look at basic safety file management and how to develop and implement a safety management system. So we really look forward to bringing you some more health and safety training during the course of 2022. But again, we want to hear from you how we can improve on this and make you as members as safe as possible out there. Now, as we've always started our Toolbox Talks since COVID has happened, is those tips to continually prevent COVID-19. You hear it often, you see it often, but we just want to remind you to please wash your hands regularly with soap and water for 20 seconds. If this is not available where you are on site, please have available with you some hand sanitizer. And then if you have not washed your hands, please do not touch your eyes, nose, and mouth. Adhere to your social distancing. And if you are sick, please do not come to work, rather get better. Make sure you get tested. If you are negative, you can go back to work. But if you are negative for COVID-19, but you are still sick with the flu, well, please remember you still have sick leave for that as well. You are not only allowed to take sick leave for COVID, it is if you are sick. So please make sure during this time when the change of season happens, if you are feeling ill, just make sure you get that doctor's note for your employer. If you do sneeze or cough, make sure you can do this into a tissue if possible. Otherwise, use a flexed elbow, but recommended is to use a tissue and then throw this into the bin. And always clean and disinfect frequently touched objects and surfaces. This includes your vehicles, your tools, or anything that you are using to pass to another person. So that would include pens and pencils, any stationery that you might use in the office as well. And if you can, do your part and get vaccinated. On that note, if you haven't taken our vaccination awareness course on the benefits or the side effects of vaccination and what your legislative requirements are in terms of companies and employees, and what your constitutional right is to refuse to have the vaccination, or if you choose to get it. All of that is also covered in our vaccination program. So please reach out to us. That is free of charge, obviously, to any person. So this morning we are looking at Safety 101. Next week we are going to be touching on Can I Do My Own Safety? That is part 3, and we will touch base and put those reminders in from part 1 and part 2. This is the last part of Can I Do My Own Safety? Thereafter, we'll be discussing the mentorship program that we are going to be implementing for our members. But the safety thought that we want you to think of during this week, safety doesn't happen by accident. You need to be prepared. You need to put in some effort into ensuring that you have a proper legislative compliant management system. Now, this could be in the form of a digital safety management system, a paper-based safety file, but whatever you're using, it always comes down to what are the minimum requirements in terms of law. The OHS Act, as well as the regulations that are following, all give you the minimum requirements for your business. Now, every single company, every business must know what legislation is required for them to uphold. This is what we call a legal register. A legal register is basically a list of the legislation. So let's say the OHS Act with each of the sections next to it. So starting from section 1 all the way to section 50, you're going to skip out quite a bit of it because the OHS Act basically tells you what the OHS Act is. It'll give you some definitions. And then it will start, let's say, around about section 7, where it tells you as a company to have a health and safety policy. And so you'll have that written out. And next to that, you'll say health and safety policy for our company. And then you obviously have to have that physical document, the health and safety policy for your company. Then we look at section 8 of the OHS Act, which tells us the minimum requirements that employers must uphold to ensure the health and safety of their employees. So these are the duties that employers must uphold. And under section 8, specifically looking at section 8.2, it tells you to ensure there are risk assessments. It tells you to ensure that you appoint someone in terms of supervision. It tells you to do training. Now, again, this is covered once again within your health and safety policy. But then from this, you have additional documentation. And so your legal register will then outline, is it required for you in your company? Yes, it's required. What is the proof in terms of documentation next to that? You will then write what document it is. And then please remember, you must have the actual document available. Now, this is the same with any other piece of legislation. If you are working in the construction industry, and many plumbers do, then the construction regulation will apply to you. Now, if you're not working on construction, then you do not need anything from the construction regulation. And again, there are other types of regulations that affect you in terms of any business. Now, one of those is your general safety regulations. Because it's general, it tells you that any company generally must adhere to those safety regulations. Maybe not every single section of the regulation, but at least to a degree, you must have that readily available in your company. Outline which section does affect you, then state which document it is that you are adhering to, and then have that physical document. And so that's why it's very important to have a legal register. But please remember, although this is the minimum requirements, the minimum does not stop you from improvement. It doesn't stop you from having a more robust, a more in-depth safety management system that helps your company stand out from the norm. So we don't just want to have minimum. If we think of a plumber that comes out, if we had 3 quotes from 3 different plumbers and they all said the exact same thing, well, then we would go for who is cheaper, isn't it? They all are exactly the same. But let's say 1 out of those 3 plumbers were different. They had a higher standard of installation. They had a better guarantee. Yes, they were a little bit more expensive, but they stood out as different because it wasn't just the minimum. You don't just get an installation, you get a safe installation, you get a guaranteed installation, you get a COC after your installation. You see, all of that now makes a huge difference. The price compares to the value you are getting. In terms of your health and safety, whatever you put in is what you are getting out. If you put in the minimum, you will get out the minimum. Now, health and safety is there to save lives. It's there to prevent incidents and accidents from taking our employees off-site because of injury and allowing us to work with 1 less in the team. It stops major hazards. It stops deaths. And all of these will affect your company's bottom line. And so, yes, we want to always look at running the business, but at the same time, we cannot run a business without employees. Now, whether you have 1, 2, 3 employees, all the way up to 30, 40, even 100 employees, the safety management systems need to all run on the same minimum requirements. But again, even though you've got that level, we always want to ensure that we improve. Now, when it comes to one of the very minimum types of requirements that you have to have, as we mentioned in Section 7 of the OHS Act, is to have a health and safety policy for your company. Now, every business is required to have health and safety policies and procedures in place to clearly express their desire to uphold the Act as well as the regulations and show that they are going to do so. Now, a policy in terms of health and safety, or could be an environmental policy, it could be a smoking policy, could be a policy for pregnancy in your company. It needs to outline what you as a company intend to do. And that's what a policy statement is. It states what you intend to do as a company. Now, you can have a standard template type health and safety policy. These are ones that we even give out for free. We expect you to take this and then make it more bespoke to your company, make it more specific to how you intend to do something. But there's nothing wrong with using the minimum standard, as long as you back it up with how. And that's where procedures come into play. So what is stated in your policy? If you state that you are going to keep your employees safe and healthy during their scope of work, then you need to have a procedure to tell us how you are going to do that. You see, there's no point in saying what you want to do without telling us how you are going to do it. Now, as we mentioned there at the bottom, you may have more policies and procedures. You may have more procedures than policies. And this is because your policy might be very broad. It will cover many items. A health and safety policy will cover things like health in terms of smoking environment. It will cover illness. It might cover medicals. It will cover the safety aspect, making sure that you have tools and registers and checklists. It might even cover fall from heights, all in one document, which is specific to your type of work. But then the policy only outlines 10 things, whereas a procedure needs to outline 1. So one policy might mean that you have 10 procedures. A procedure on fall protection, a procedure on smoking environment, a procedure on medicals. And so that is why it's so important for you to back up your policies with a proper procedure. Every procedure has a method statement or a safe work procedure, how you are going to go about implementing this procedure. So it's a lot more detailed. And again, you might think, well, this is a lot of work, but this is also just the minimum requirements. You can do a lot more than just policies and procedures. So what do we mean by this? Well, if you look at this youngster busy fixing his vehicle, he's got all the tools, but he's also writing down what he's done. He's writing down what he took off, what tools he used, how he went about doing it. Now, why is this so important? Well, one of the reasons it's important is because it sets a standard. Now, in the industry, specifically for plumbing, if we didn't have standards to tell you how to install a geyser, then we would have a lot of fly-by-nights, which we still have, installing geysers that are not compliant. That is why it is so important to have a procedure, a standard of doing something. And this sets the standard for our company. It sets the standard of how you as a company are identifying yourself to your clients, your customers out there, as well as to any other competition, to say that this is the standard that we have reached. Now, if you want to set the standard in the industry, you cannot just rely on minimum requirements. We cannot just rely on the minimum of installations for plumbing. We need to go that extra step further. We need to see what our clients need, what our employees need, and what is going to be the most beneficial, not just for your company, but also for your employees. Now, one of the next minimum points of requirements for you as a company is ensuring that you have an appointment or a set of appointments. And this will really go in accordance with your organogram or your legal structure within the company. And this is starting at the top from the CEO, what we call a 16.1, It's the person ultimately responsible for health and safety within the company. They may delegate responsibility to key persons within the company. And these ones, such as a 16.2, a second in charge, an 8.2. If we look at construction regulations, you'll have an 8.1 or an 8.7. All of these are various types of appointments. You can appoint a first aider. You can appoint a firefighter. You can appoint a SHE representative. But before you appoint someone, you need to first ask them if they want to be appointed into that position. Now, some appointments are automatic, such as a 16.1. If you are the CEO of the company, that is automatic. You are already delegated as a 16.1 person. We do not need to check with you if you want to be appointed in that capacity. If you've been trained for first aid and you've accepted that you want to be trained as a first aider, well, then along with that training is the appointment for the company. And so you've accepted that appointment. But sometimes, and we have seen this within our own company, when we go out to train a company and we tell them you have to have a first aid or a firefighter, instead of having a discussion with the employees, they just pick someone randomly and say, well, they're going to be the first aider. And when we come down to training them, the person says they hate seeing blood. You know, at the sight of blood, they pass out. Well, that's not going to be a very effective first aider, isn't it? What about someone who is appointed then on site to ensure that rigging and sligging is set up correctly in order to prevent your tools, equipment, your geyser installation, or even the person attached to that rigging from falling? If they don't really want to be appointed in that position and you've sent them for the training and they've got their certificate, we assume based on their certificate that they will do the job properly. But a certificate only means that they've been approved through the training. They might not have the experience. They might not even have the desire to do it. And the last thing we want is a qualified plumber that doesn't have the desire to do installations of plumbing. The last thing we want is a plumber who seems to have all the credentials, but leaves the area untidy, or perhaps leaves out certain aspects of the SANS code in his installation. Yes, even though they might have the qualifications, are they upholding those qualifications? So it's very good. Why not sit down and discuss this with your team? Before you appoint someone, speak to them. Ask them if they want to be in that position. Then find out if there's any necessary training that that person might need in order to uphold and carry out their responsibility. And before you actually send them, find out, do they meet the criteria for that responsibility? It might mean a little bit of extra training. It might be a little bit more on the site experience. So we always want to ensure that our team is not just trained with a certificate, but that they are capable of carrying out their responsibility. This is, again, the minimum requirements. How you go about that, though, is really dependent on you. Another minimum requirement is managing your risk. And that is by looking at the 3 different types of risk assessment. First of all, you have your baseline or overall risk rating for your company. This takes into consideration all the work that you perform as a company, not just on one specific site, such as installing a geyser. It would be everything. It would be welding, be soldering. It would be working at heights. It would be working in confined spaces, working in trenches. It will be working in sewers using high pressure sprayers. Although you're not doing that all on one site, as a company, you should have a risk assessment for all the work that you do. Now, from that baseline risk assessment, you can pull out individual tasks or individual issues and create an issue-based risk assessment specific to the scope of work being performed. These are generally the types of risk assessments that your clients ask for when you get to site. They will say, as a plumber, you are coming to do an installation of a geyser. Well, you see, your baseline has all of that information in it. And so you can draw that information out into a separate document. But now we want to make it a little bit more specific. You see, installation of a geyser is done on the ground floor, sometimes done in a roof, in a ceiling, sometimes done at heights, sometimes done in a confined space. And so all of those aspects or issues will then also be in your baseline risk assessment and then can also be pulled out. Now you have a task or issue specific risk assessment only for that scope of work you are performing. Read through it again, check through it again, and make sure that it also is upholding what site regulations might be needed. See, you might get to site and they might have a possibility of working in and around other contractors. You might have to work under someone who's working at heights. So all of that information will then also need to be included in your issue base. This makes your risk assessment site specific. And then we have continuous risk assessment programs. These continuous ones are all based and depends on what you need in your company. These could be things that are like a job observation done by a supervisor to check that the team that he is supervising is actually doing the job according to those policies, procedures, and risk assessments. That might include a daily safe task instruction. Before we do work, we need to fill in a daily safe task instruction to show the safety officer on site what are the major hazards we are going to face today only. And that daily safe task instruction will be then completed in the morning, signed off, and then at the back, or depending on what type of DSTI you use, it normally gives you a recommendation on how to go about cleaning your site and leaving the site in a safe manner. And that will also then be signed off by the safety officer once again. It could be a job hazard analysis, where before you do the job, you need to send in some sort of method statement or risk assessment to your client to identify the hazard analysis for that specific job. And once you've sent it in and they've approved it, you go in and perform that job over a 2-3 day period. So these are normally very basic, simple risk assessments, but they are upheld every single day. Every time we get to site, we are doing something that promotes continuous risk assessment. Now, however your program works, it might be different from company to company, but it, again, is a minimum requirement. So you can build on the minimum, but if we don't have the minimum yet, well, then we have nothing to build on. One of the second last things then of simple or basic safety 101 is incident management. Now, we know that accidents do happen. It's happened to us. It's happened to us before. We don't want it to happen, but we do know that if we know something's going to happen, or if we can imagine because it's happened to someone else, we need to be prepared. And so incident management works on two active, proactive or reactive plans for managing incidents and accidents. Proactive, obviously, before an incident occurs. Proactive means we do a register, we do a checklist, we do an on-site inspection. We do everything we can to see what might happen on site, what could happen on site, and then we proactively try to prevent it from happening. Something as simple as checking your safety harness and connecting it to a lifeline or an anchor point before you start working is a proactive approach to incident management. Well, then there's the reactive side. That is during and after an incident. Now, reactive is a reaction. Are you prepared with a first aider should somebody be injured? There's a reactive approach. So that's during an incident. Then you afterwards have to do an investigation. And again, this all comes down to how are you going to do it? Do you have policies and procedures in place, specifically procedures, in order to proactively manage incidents and accidents? And do you have procedures in place to reactively during an incident and after an incident? And this would include your emergency management as well. What happens when an emergency occurs? You're reactive. During an emergency, this is what we do. It's outlined, it's stated, it's clear, it's a method statement to follow, step-by-step procedure. And then finally, we have overall management. Now, this is the entire management system, our entire safety profile, our entire safety file. If we do not have regular and organized checks on a system, then we will not keep up with the minimum. You see, you'll never know where your shortfall is. And many people call this an audit program. You may call it an audit program. We use PDCA, Plan, Do, Check, Act. Yes, it is part of auditing, or auditing is just part of our overall management structure, but it is only one part. We do not use an audit to wholly express to us where we are in terms of safety management. We use regular inspections. And so regular and organized checks, such as job observations in terms of your risk management, all help us to build a safety profile, not just a risk profile, but a safety profile. How effective and how efficient is your management system in preventing incidents and accidents and keeping your employees safe? In other words, your policy stated what you wanted to do. Your procedures told us how you are going to be doing it. But your overall management tells us to what percent you are actually achieving that policy. Now, again, and I don't want you to forget this, you could also improve on the system and make it more bespoke to you as a company. So yes, Safety 101 tells us the minimum requirements in terms of the law, and we appreciate that. But safety doesn't happen by accident. We are not just going to fall into a safety management system or have a safety file set up for us as a template. We do not want to work with templates. A template is not even the minimum requirement. It outlines what the minimum requirements are. So take that, design a minimum-based management system for yourself. And we're going to help you through the next coming months. We have designed these management systems. We've designed the training around it. And we want you to identify someone in your company who's going to take your health and safety management system and run with us at our OPSA. We want you to mentor someone in your company that is going to take your current system, whether it be minimum, whether it be bespoke, whether it be a massive, awesome safety management system that you've purchased, such as an ISO system, regardless of what you have in place. Let's work together on this mentorship program, and let's see if we can get you to a more improved system. And if we can't do that and we keep you on the same minimum requirements, maybe you can assist someone else, maybe even your competition. And you might say, well, why would I want to do that? Well, you could protect and prevent someone from losing their life just by assisting them with their safety management system. So if you are interested in doing something like that, if you want to go into the mentorship program that our OPSA is going to be setting up for you, or if perhaps you can assist someone else, reach out to us, safety@iopsa.org. Get in touch with the safety department, info@ohss.co.za. Send us a WhatsApp 071-875-2070. And we look forward to seeing you next week for another SIOSH and PRB CPD accredited Toolbox Talk. The last one for January is going to be the last part of Can I Do My Own Safety? So we look forward to seeing you there. And we also just want to remind you to please continually prevent COVID-19 in your workplace. Just a very big thank you to all of our attendees and for those who have reached out already to us to tell us exactly what they're expecting to see from us. Again, keep safe, and we look forward to seeing you next week.